LABC Solar Financing Workshop. We have an outstanding group of experts with us today. Joining us is U.S. Congressman Tony Kardes, the LADWP Water and Power Director of Resource Planning, Development and Programs, Jason Rondu, and Senior VP of Sales for GAF, Jason Barrett. Today, these experts will share their plans for solar expansion in LA, their knowledge about federal, state, and local incentives that will be available to you, and how to finance and install solar on your property. Please feel free to submit your questions in the Q&A section as the panelists are presenting, and we'll get to them at the end of the presentation. As you are aware, creating more solar rooftops and transitioning to 100% renewable energy is a major priority for LA and the state of California. To hit our renewable energy goals, everyone must understand the benefits of these programs, especially property owners, residential owners, and community leaders. This workshop is the perfect opportunity for us to showcase different financial models for those of you who are interested in installing solar and answer any questions you may have. For the past decade, the LABC has helped develop, expand, and champion LADWP's feed and tariff solar rooftop program. It has created thousands of new jobs in LA, and it's brought millions of dollars of new revenue to both property owners and the community. And at least 40% of the program has served disadvantaged communities. So we don't want to just talk about equity, we want to actually deliver it. Programs like these have made LA the #1 solar city in America, and we are really proud of that. LABC has teamed with many partners who have a long history working in the Northeast San Fernando Valley on programs to reduce adverse health impacts resulting from incompatible land uses through the Clean Up Green Up ordinance, a first of its kind for a major city that LA adopted. We have increased deployment of local solar by expanding the solar rooftop programs and targeting them into communities that need them most, that are trying to replace aging fossil fuel infrastructure with clean energy technology. I want to thank our partners on the Green Together Collaborative, the Strategic Growth Council, and Wells Fargo for supporting the LABC's community engagement for the last 5 years and outreach efforts that have made today's event possible. It is now my honor to introduce a champion for solar. When he was a member of the LA City Council, he helped us get over the finish line with the Solar Fit program. He is a friend of the LABC, and he does really important work in Congress, which he's going to share with us. As you know, he represents California's 29th congressional district, which includes most of the San Fernando Valley. He is a member of the critically important and powerful House Energy and Commerce Committee, and we look forward to hearing about his work in DC today. As you know, throughout his time as a public servant, Congressman Kardes has been a leader in the fight against climate change and a strong protector of the environment. He understands that the climate crisis is a serious threat to our nation, our national security, and our economic prosperity. He has always advocated and pushed for cleaner air, safe drinking water, and renewable energy throughout his career. Recently, he introduced or reintroduced the Affordable Solar Energy for Our Communities Act, which would establish a $200 million grant program to finance the planning and construction of solar installations for low-income homeowners and nonprofits that serve low-income households or multifamily affordable housing complexes. This legislation also promotes solar workforce training and development. In addition to this, he will share what some of the new opportunities are in the federal infrastructure plan and address solar and electric vehicles. So with that, please welcome our friend, Congressman Tony Kardes.
Thank you, Mary. Thank you for inviting me, LA Business Council, and to everybody who's learning more about how important it is that we recycle and that we create energy right here, right over our rooftops, et cetera. There are new ways, better ways, technology for us to treat this planet the way it should be. If you notice behind me, there's a bunch of pictures. Those are taken by my wife, and most of them have our grandkids. No offense to my children, but a few of them might have pictures of our children, but the grandkids are in most of them. I think that speaking of my grandkids is fitting for the topic that we're talking about right now, about making sure that we do what we can to live a good quality life, but at the same time, not do it at expense of the next generation. And that's where renewable energy comes in. And I just wanted to thank you for having this today, and remind you that I used to be on the city council at one time. I did grow up in the Northeast San Fernando Valley, got on the city council and joined my good friend Alex Padilla. And together, Alex Padilla, when he was the council president, he made me the chair of the committee that oversaw the Department of Water and Power, LA World Airports, and the ports. And while I was there, with Alex Padilla's urging, we went ahead and greened up as much as we could our airport and took it in the right direction. Also our ports, we actually proved that you can actually plug in those big, ugly diesel engines while they're sitting in port and turn them all off, and then have them on the grid here locally. People don't realize it, but our port is one of our biggest polluters in the LA basin. So anything that we can do to help them out is going to be better for all of us. But what are we doing for everybody else? What we're doing is making sure that neighborhoods are cleaner and safer. When I was on the city council, I'm very proud to say, I grew up in the Northeast Valley in Pacoima, right down the street from more landfills than anywhere else in the LA County. And I was the first councilman on the city council to say no to an expansion to a dump site in Sun Valley. And a lot of people were mad at me, said that I'm gonna, end jobs or what have you. No, we actually increased jobs. What I did is I approved the first transfer station right there on the spot to make sure that instead of putting all that trash in the ground like they did in the caveman days, we made sure that we had an opportunity to put as much material as possible into the recycling system, and that's what we did. And so I just want to say there are many ways that we can improve on the environment. But when it comes to solar energy, when it comes to the opportunity to make sure that everybody has access, no matter who you are, whether you live in an apartment, you can participate. Whether you're an apartment owner, there's going to be opportunities for you. Whether you're a single family resident owner or a small business owner, there are opportunities. And that's what we're focused on in Washington. We're focused on making sure that we have more and more capacity and opportunity to take your tax dollars and put it back into the community in a clean way. For example, we are working on grant programs to the tune of billions of dollars so that we can actually have affordable, clean energy right here in your backyard. So please keep looking out for what we're doing in Washington when it comes to the activities we're doing right now. I'm on the Energy and Commerce Committee. We just dealt with 2.5 days of with very little sleep of working on issues of energy, working on issues of healthcare, working on issues of job creation, et cetera. It's all related, ladies and gentlemen. And that's what we're doing in Washington, making sure that we can bring cleaner energy opportunities for everyone. For example, if you have a system at your home and you're a single family resident owner, you can save as much as $1,000 a month or more on your energy bill. And on top of that, making sure that you're being friendlier to the environment. And like I said earlier, making sure that we can have the things that we want and need, but making sure that we leave the planet better off for our children and grandchildren. In addition to that, as Mary just mentioned, I reintroduced my bill, Affordable Solar Energy for Our Communities Act. And what that's going to do is this legislation makes it easier for low-income families to go solar while cutting their energy bills and reducing their carbon footprint. Let me say it again, solar panels will actually make your bills cheaper, maybe to the tune of more than $1,000 a year less on your energy bills. And that can go a long way for a low-income family. In addition to that, the band is back together, so to speak. When I was working on the city council with now United States Senator Alex Padilla, who goes to Washington now, like I do. One of the first things we did when he got to Washington is we introduced him in the Senate, me in the House of Representatives, a bill that has a commitment of $25 billion, that's with a B, to clean up 500,000 diesel school buses across America. That's right. On any given day, there are about 500,000 school buses that are getting fired up on a school day all across America, putting our children at risk. And that bill, we are working hard to get it through with as much intact as possible. We're negotiating the dollar amount with the White House. We're negotiating the Senate and the House and the Speaker and the Pro Tem in the Senate. And we're going to make sure that we get as much of that done as possible. But that's just the beginning. We're also working on other things like the $150 billion in Clean Electricity Performance Program. That's something that we're working on right now. $27.5 billion to Greenhouse Gas Reduction Fund to support the rapid deployment of low and zero emission technologies. We want to make sure that United States, our country, is the leader around the world when it comes to not just solar energy, but every kind of clean energy. And we're having those debates and we're having those discussions, and we're putting the pen to paper and making sure that we can get it to the president's desk as soon as we can. So there's a lot more to report, but there's a lot of discussion. Love to get to the question and answer. So I'll hand it back to you, Mary.
Thank you, Congressman. This is almost a perfect segue because I want to acknowledge Marty Adams, who's with us, the general manager of LADWP, and really a better person or more terrific leader at this point for this transition. You'd be hard to think of. Marty is definitely the right person at the right time, because this 100% clean energy by 2035 is more aggressive than the state goal. I think it's more aggressive than any goal, actually, than maybe Hawaii or Maine, and they're little places. Okay, so Marty, with that, I'd just like to acknowledge your leadership and thank you, because you've done a really great job, and I know you're going to continue to.
Thank you, Mary. And I'd like to thank the Congressman for being here today. I mean, he really underscores the importance of this. And more importantly, he embodied these ideas, many years ago when he was in city council. He played a key leadership role in really bringing these to the forefront and really helping us launch our FIT program. It's so appropriate to have him back in DC now representing us and fighting for the things that we need as a major city in the United States to really lead the way. And Los Angeles, Mary, as you said, we are the #1 solar city in the nation. We plan to continue to be that way. And I've said before to a lot of the folks in the community, this requires everyone to participate. It can't just be what the utility does, but it's what we do with you and your buildings, your rooftops, how we engage to help everyone participate in the success of the future. And it's very important to us that there's really a rollout of this kind of success and ability to really take an active role in green energy, be able to save on your bills, as the Congressman, I almost called you Councilman, Councilman and Congressman, said. This has to be something that everyone succeeds in this together and everyone participates together. And there are great opportunities. Jason Rondu from our staff is going to talk about the programs that we have and how we're rolling those out. And we are particularly interested in reaching communities that we have not been able to reach before, and that really need an insertion of finances and assistance and really a chance to participate in this great energy future that will be led largely by Los Angeles and communities like us throughout the country. And so thank you very much, Congressman. Thank you so much for supporting the kind of financial spending that we could certainly use to bolster the work that we're doing in the city of LA and to help our communities they're all of our communities together to really participate and make the most of this as we move into the future. And, certainly being on the front edge of this, it costs a little more up front. It's important to have that participation financially. And then as we leverage this, then they will see that this is the way to go. And what looks like the future now will be the norm if we do this correctly. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Marty, and thank you for joining us today with the Congressman. And Congressman, before I introduce Jason Rondu, I just want to say thank you so much for your leadership on this diesel school bus initiative. And I think we would love at the LABC to get behind you on that and give you whatever support you'd like. I mean, we did that at Metro with the buses, I think, and I think this is just more of the same, right? This is a really terrific initiative of yours, and we definitely want to support it. So with that, I would say I'm really pleased now to introduce Jason Rondu. He is somebody we've known for a long time. He's always done outstanding work. It's a credit to the DWP that they keep promoting him. I'm not sure this guy's going to be like 30 years old and the next general manager at this point. But anyway, if ever there was somebody that deserved to be given more responsibility, it's Jason. He's currently the Director of Resource Planning, Development, and Programs for DWP. But then when you hear all the things he's doing, you'll understand why I'm saying this. He's currently LADWP's Clean Grid LA Strategy Division. He's the director of that, and he oversees the strategic long-term resource plan, which DWP is about to engage. And for any of you who don't know what that is their 2-year plan that they budget from and deploy from. And I'm sure Jason will talk a little bit about that. He also is the way we know him is because of the Distributed Energy Resource Planning, Development and Program groups, the DER groups in utility language. That's all your local solar, your net metered solar, your feed-in tariff solar, any of the biomass, any of the local stuff done just in a distributed manner. He also has overseen the successful LA 100 study, which the city of LA got behind 100%, and the council made a motion and approved your key recommendations. The devil is always in the details, so we're looking forward to learning more about that. But I think that the fact that you now have a plan done with the national labs that shows us a cost-effective and reliable way to get to 100% carbon-free energy by 2035 will make you a leader in the country and the world. Okay, that's just going to be a fact. DWP is going to be internationally sought after this one. So with that, Jason, no pressure. We're thrilled to have you with us here today because a lot of the work we've been doing and the focus of this workshop today is the work inside the city of LA, and to Marty's point, getting to the communities that need clean energy. Jason, I know you care about that, and you're going to be quite helpful. So with that, please welcome Jason Rondu.
Thank you very much, Marion. I really appreciate those kind words. Some of them maybe deserved, maybe some of them not so much. I've got a filter on that makes me look about 10 years younger. So you made my day. Thank you for thank you for that. I'm going to jump right into a few slides that talk about the big picture that Mary alluded to about what our big picture plans are to get to 100% renewable energy. We really embarked on a study that's never been done before at this magnitude. But in the meantime, we have a lot of work ahead of us, and really thanks to the leadership of the Congressman, the leadership of LABC, and others who really understood the importance of local resources, the importance of having resources here in the city of Los Angeles, really put us in a position to where we can achieve a lot of these goals a lot earlier than we previously thought. So I'm going to jump on and pull these slides up. And if there's any issue with the sound or the slides, just let me know, and I'll try to take care of it. Okay, so let's get these up. Okay, so jumping right into it. So the LA 100 study really looked at what are the pathways that we can take to get to 100% renewable energy. This is very different from setting a 100% renewable energy goal. This is really looking at what are the investments that we need to make to get there. What are the impacts in terms of air quality, in terms of cost, and what does it mean for local jobs in the economy, and importantly for environmental justice. And the study really found that we can achieve this. Now, that's not really as much of a surprise as you'd think it would be, but the magnitude of the work that it will take to get there is really, really surprising. And I'll show you what that looks like in a moment. What are the costs of doing this? We know that this will cost anywhere from $57 to $87 billion. It'll create about 9,500 jobs, some of those within LADWP, but a significant amount of them will be induced into indirect jobs and direct jobs that will be part of this over the next 25 years, which was the study's horizon. Now, importantly, one of the findings was that rate impacts will roughly track inflation if we see building and transportation electrification. So that's a really, really important caveat, that not only will transportation electrification decarbonize a totally separate sector, but it will help make this transition affordable for utilities, including LADWP. The study also found that we can achieve 100% by 2035. Now, it didn't say that it will be easy. There will be very big challenges and big efforts ahead of us, but it is possible, and it is a goal that our mayor and our council have since expressed that we want to achieve. So now, what are the sort of ways that we need to get there? So I mentioned we can get there, and it won't be easy. The magnitude of what we need to invest in is really, really big. We know that we're going to need electrification on the building side. We know that we'll need things like smart thermostats. We have that now, but the amount of growth is going to be significant. Now, you heard Marty mention that we are #1 in solar of any city in the country. We've been that way for 7 out of the last 8 years. And I think in that 1 year, we're like #2. So we are in that position in part due to the leadership of the Congressman of LABC and others in the city who knew very early on of the importance of local resources. Now, even with that, even with our position as a leader in local solar, we know that we need to increase the amount of local solar that we have several-fold over the next decade and a half. Renewable energy, of course, that will be part of our renewable future, but how much is really the question. If you look at all the resources that we have today, all of the storage, all of the, for the next couple of years, coal, geothermal, solar, wind, all of that, we're going to need to double the capacity that we have today in order to serve all of the growing load from electric vehicles and building electrification of the port, LAX, and other major customers. We know that we're going to need a lot of storage. Now, the last two are very important. Transmission and local capacity are very important. Under all scenarios, even the scenarios where we really maximize local solar, we still need to have the ability to import really, really low cost storage and large scale wind and solar. So really, there is so much work that needs to be done. And not least among the work that needs to get done is at the local level. And we've really achieved our status as a leading utility and a leading city in local solar because we've approached this for a long time as a portfolio approach. Many utilities just have what's called net energy metering, where it's sort of the more standard solar that you might see on your rooftop, whether it's a home or whether it's a business. And that really helps customers offset their energy burden. If they've got a new roof, if they've got a home, they've got a business, they can install that. Now, that's a lot of ifs. We're an extraordinarily diverse city from many perspectives, from the density, from the income, from income distribution, and many different perspectives. And so the rest of the solar programs helped highlight how we've approached this, not just from a expanding the solar resource perspective, but ensuring that we are reaching communities that otherwise wouldn't be able to access solar energy. So with the feed-in tariff program, that program was established back in 2012, and that has really ramped up into a robust program that has almost 90 megawatts delivering energy today, helping to bring our emissions down and playing a very, very key role in our transformation. We also play a leadership role, LADWP does, in building some of our own utility-built solar, and that's primarily on our own city facilities, on DWP facilities. We also have a suite of community solar programs which really aim to address the reality that a lot of participation in LADWP programs requires a co-investment. Our clean energy future will be very heavily dependent on customers. It will require partnerships. And the reality is that home ownership, extra capital, good credit rating are really often prerequisites to participate in many of the clean energy programs that utilities offer, including LADWP. And we know that in the city of LA, that we have a significant rate of rentership. We have a significant amount of disadvantaged communities within the city of LA. And so we have built out a growing portfolio of community solar programs that helps make sure that all customers have the ability to access renewable energy and play a role in helping LADWP continue to be a leading utility. I want to focus a little bit on feed-in tariff today. And happy to answer questions on any of these programs here today, including our future plans for expansion of these programs. But I really want to talk about the success of the feed-in tariff program. So I mentioned that we have a portfolio approach. These are 3 just examples, and I'll show you in a second a map of where all of these are across the city of LA. These are 3 examples of rooftops that if we did not have the feed-in tariff program, these rooftops would not have solar on them. And the reason that is the feed-in tariff program says, well, we recognize that there are a lot of great roofs throughout the city of LA, but maybe those parcels don't have a really large energy consumption. So really there isn't a mechanism for them to monetize that roof. So what LADWP does in partnership with developers and in partnership with the owners of these buildings is we say, we'll contract for 20 years, you sell us all of that energy, and you'll get a revenue. You'll be able to monetize that roof space. So all of these locations have relatively low energy consumption, so they wouldn't really warrant a big solar installation, except for the feed-in tariff program. So this gets back to the vision that city leaders had many years ago to recognize that we needed to create a mechanism to encourage rooftop solar where there otherwise wouldn't be. So all three of these, and you'll see in a moment, hundreds of installations across the city would not have solar on the roofs but for this program. So right now we've got 20 megawatts available today. So what that means is there's a really healthy runway for developers to understand that if they start negotiating with a building owner, that there will be capacity available in this program for them when they're ready to go. We've got about 90 megawatts that are in service now. We throw around this term megawatts. What does that really mean? Think of like a Costco or like a big box store. That might be like a 0.5 megawatt roof space, right? So if you think about this, this is hundreds of installations. All these green bubbles represent installations throughout the city of Los Angeles for just feed-in tariff. This is not counting all of the other solar programs that we've gotten. And you can see in the East San Fernando Valley area, a lot of potential in this area for many reasons. And actually the previous slide where you saw those three installations, one of those is the ZBEC installation, which is the largest solar installation in Sun Valley. So this is a program that we're extraordinarily proud of, that has seen a major, it has been a big needle mover for LADWP and really provides a great opportunity to our customers. So I mentioned it offers the opportunity to monetize a roof space, but it really also ensures that we are able to deploy solar in locations that otherwise wouldn't have seen it. So I mentioned that there's 20 megawatts available today, but we recently actually had the authorization to expand the program to a total of 450 megawatts by City Council. And so what that means is when we sort of get close to running out of capacity, we simply go back to our board and report back on the status, and we seek more capacity. So we really truly have a runway to continue to build on the successes of the feed-in tariff program. I did see a question earlier about, well, what size, how many square feet would be eligible for this type of program. And this really ranges from 30 kilowatts, which might be sort of like a, I'm just trying to think of things that might resonate with some of you, but maybe like a rooftop of a 7-Eleven, something fairly small, but not as small as a home, all the way up to, we've got a couple installations that are actually above 10 megawatts. And those are on really big locations. We've got one out at the port that's 15 megawatts. So it really ranges, and the price kind of, changes, depending on how big those installations are. So the takeaway here is that this program is set up, it's ready to go, and we've had a lot of successes to date. But in addition to the feed-in tariff program, LADWP, I mentioned, has taken a leadership role in doing a lot of really innovative projects. And so this is an example of a project that we've done that actually just started construction in South LA. We're under design for an installation in the Pacoima area as well. And this is through partnerships with Rec and Parks to identify facilities that are cooling centers, and to say that, in the event of high heat days where folks don't have air conditioning, they can rely upon these locations to get not just air conditioning, but to be able to charge electric vehicles in the future. And in the rare event that we have a grid outage, these locations would have power to provide cooling and to provide the ability to charge cell phones and that sort of thing. And it's something where LADWP is trying to continue to play a leadership role. I want to touch on one other program before I conclude here, and again, happy to answer questions. And I'm also really interested in hearing feedback, especially in how we can do more to engage the community and make the community aware of these programs. I know that's, we often do a really good job of standing up programs and creating great platforms to do great things, but the challenge is really engaging. And that's where we, always like to hear feedback on what more we can do to really get folks to understand these programs and participate. But one of our new programs is our Community Emission Reductions Grant Program. And this program recognizes that the entire city is impacted in different ways from pollution, from climate change. And this recognizes that in the area of the harbor generating station, the valley generating station, we have set up a grant program where we have $20 million available to council districts 2, 6, 7, and 15. And these are grant programs where you can propose electric vehicle programs, solar programs, efficiency, or a combination thereof. And we actually just identified, I believe, about $5 million worth of projects that will be awarded soon. And later this year, I think close to October, the next round will be available. So if you go to our website and there's a link to how to participate, we will be accepting applications for this program. And so we've done a few things to help advertise and really make folks aware of this. We've reached out to nonprofits and we've worked with government organizations to really do that. But we've learned that we need to do a little bit more. And so for the next round, we're going to be reaching out to different platforms to advertise, whether that's social media and that sort of thing, and looking for partners to do things like going to door where that's appropriate, and looking for opportunities for MOUs for technical assistance, where participants in this program may say, I want to participate, I've got a great idea, but we don't necessarily have the expertise to really navigate a utility-centric grant program. So we're looking at ways to expand that. So I know I touched on a lot in a short period of time, but I really wanted to make sure that I emphasized the successes and the opportunities that we've got with FIT, as well as this community emission reduction program. So we've got a lot coming in the near term. So right now, this year, but over the coming years, and Mary alluded to this earlier, is we have our plan to really accelerate our renewable transition to 100% by 2035. And it's going to take significant continued engagement with the community, with LABC, with many of you. I'll pause here for questions. And one of the things that I'd like to really queue up is, again, what can LAWP do to ensure that we continue to see participation in these programs? What are the areas that we're not currently looking at where we really could? A lot of these programs are great and participation is fine, but we can ramp them up, and we really do need to ramp them up because, as I mentioned, under all of the scenarios to get to 100% renewable energy, we're really going to have to double our capacity. So this is not an incremental change. This is truly a transformative change. So I just want to conclude by thanking LABC and thanking everybody for the interest. And again, I don't know how much time we have for questions, but I'm happy to answer some questions.
Thank you, Jason. I'm thinking what we're going to do is finish with our third speaker, Jason Barrett, and then go to Q&A if that's okay for you.
Absolutely.
Okay, cool. Okay, and the Congressman, thank you. Congressman, thank you so much.
Okay, thank you. Take care.
Okay, we are now joined by Senior VP of Sales at GAF Energy, Jason Barrett. GAF Energy is a subsidiary of Standard Industries, the world's largest roofing and waterproofing company, and was launched in 2019 to drive scalable adoption of rooftop solar. As Senior VP of Sales, Jason is helping expand the scale and reach of GAF's energy solar installations and bringing new technologies to scale that combine GAF Energy solar expertise with Standard Industries roofing expertise. Prior to his sales and commercial tax equity roles at GAF Energy, Jason served as Chief Commercial Officer for SolWind, was a founding partner of Paladin Strategic Partners, and has held senior positions as a finance and asset management firms, including Merrill Lynch, Credit Suisse, Fannie Mae, Morgan Stanley, and Hartford Insurance Group. So this is a rare person you have in Jason Barrett with such a strong financial background and interest in solar. We're so lucky that those two things are true. Also, I just want to say, Jason, that I know that you have done many of the financing of many of the solar projects for the feed-in tariff. You're one of the chief reasons why the program was successful in terms of having the backing and financing at a time where traditional lending institutions really didn't understand the SOPA, right? So In the way of background, I want to thank you and introduce you today to talk a little bit about what you've learned about the LA market, what you understand about the national market, and the excitement you have over these new technologies coming. Jason.
Well, thank you very much. I really appreciate it. I think that long introduction, all it means is I'm a repository of useless information.
Sure.
Excuse me for 1 second. I'm having one of those moments. Jason, I'm going to call, please.
That's okay. Interruptions from your son counts.
Yeah, so this is, so my children are going back to school, and they took over my office, and their homework is in my office. So
I love it.
That's the new environment. So you're getting the full family experience. So as I was saying, it just means that I'm a repository of useless information. I'm a recovering investment banker. I spent a number of years going through spreadsheets and term sheets and things of that sort. And I've done a couple of $1 billion worth of financing, but I will spare you the background. Let me tell you why solar is important to us, what we're doing at GAF. And also, I would like to, there was a transaction that Jason mentioned earlier, and he said ZBAC. And I have actually, not only did I originate that transaction, I financed that transaction. So it's always good to see your dollars going to work and used in other presentations. So thank you, Jason, for discussing ZBAC. Adam Raskin, he unfortunately has come under the weather. So I'm going to talk about two things. I'll talk about rooftop financing, and I'll talk about commercial rooftop financing and the origination. So LADWP, I was introduced into that market. I remember coming to Los Angeles. I came hand in hand. I met with Mary Leslie. I met with some of the private equity firms. And they said, JB, if you hang around and if you actually can deliver on the financing, we think LA is a target-rich opportunity, and it absolutely has been. We've invested, I started a group where we invest in about $1.8 billion of enterprise value of solar transactions, about $650 million of direct investments. And a good percentage of that was in the Los Angeles market. One transaction that we did, and I would say this is kind of the star of what we've done, has been the Port of LA. That was a 16.5 megawatt, 1.9 million square foot roof. Phenomenal transaction. And again, it continues to pay a lot of dividends. When you look at solar, and the example I always use is, if you fly into a city like Los Angeles, if you fly into any major metropolitan city, and you look at the available rooftop space, clearly there's an opportunity associated with it. We at GAF, as Mary mentioned earlier, have the largest market share as a waterproofer or roofing manufacturer in the world. We're the largest in the US. Just to give you a sense on from a residential standpoint, there are about 5 million residential re-roofs that take place a year. Yes, 5 million residential re-roofs. We have about 75% of those roofs are comp shingle roofs. We have a third of the market share. So you can look at, if everybody, if all residential customers had solar, you could see that you'd be generating a lot of power. My proudest moment has been, and again, I say this very proudly, my mother, God rest her soul, passed away last year. She was a single family. It was a single parent led household. My mother could not have afforded solar. And there was a company, I don't want to violate any confidentiality, they're based in Louisiana, and they focus on the LMI community, lower to moderate income community. And I'm happy to say that I took one of our transactions to investment committee, and this particular firm, they use a PPA lease method, which is effectively third-party owned. And we partnered with them, and we've financed close to 3,000 solar systems for the lower to moderate income residential community. And these aren't your very well-to-do upper middle class families. These are families where the savings that are garnered from solar actually go into their pockets. So I would say, of my proudest moment, that is my proudest moment. A couple other things one should think about. When is the best time to get solar? If you're getting a re-roof, the best time to get solar is when you're getting a new roof. Little known fact to many folks is that if you have a roof system and then you take a right-mounted system and you penetrate that roof, from a customer standpoint, whether you be on a multifamily or whether you be on a residential home, you actually void the warranty. So if you look at it, while solar has very good, very good goals, the unintended consequences that you may have violated, you may have, voided your warranty. So what we did, and this was a task that Mary and I discussed, I want to say it was probably like 5 years ago. And I said, Mary, we want to create a product where it's seamless, where we're not just providing financing. I mean, that's great. There's a lot of money out there and bankers like to tell you how much money they've spent. I'm not one of them. But we more importantly create a product that you can actually attach directly to a deck, and it provides the waterproofing associated with the solar. Because the worst thing that could happen, if you put solar in a community center and you've created a bunch of leaks, and then you have unintended consequences. So that's one thing that we're very proud of as a manufacturer. The other thing that we've seen and we've done is, and again, a lot of jobs have been exported due to solar. And we have now, Mary, there's an announcement, actually an announcement went out about 6 weeks ago, where we opened up a manufacturing facility in Northern California, specifically in San Jose, where we're going to be producing domestic, the first nailable solar shingle, and it's going to create a couple hundred jobs. So again, when you think of the unintended but positive consequence of our financing discussions, it led to the creation of a lot of jobs domestically and in the U.S. Now, talking about some of the technology challenges associated with solar and some of the aesthetic challenges associated with solar. There are certain solar systems, and again, this is not for the faint of heart, that look like a very bad game of Tetris that's all over your house. What we're trying to do is not only make it affordable, but we're trying to make it aesthetically pleasing and work in conjunction with the nailability of the installation of a roof. And that's not an easy feat. And again, we spent a couple of $100 million getting involved in this space. So it's not just the technology associated with it, but it's more so you can't forget about the trades that are installing this. Now, a lot of folks come up with these phenomenal, great, high-power solar panels, but when you think about it, people can't afford it, number one, so there's an affordability issue. And then number two, the ability to actually work with the trades. Roofing contractors don't like logging up, big solar panels on roofs. So we've created something that we think is interesting. On the financing side, from a commercial side, and again, our prayers are with Adam Raskin as he does a speedy recovery. Adam Raskin represents a sponsor equity partner. So a sponsor equity partner can be a private equity firm, which they happen to be. A sponsor equity partner could be a hedge fund, it could be a family office, it could be a utility. So if you think of a deal and you're financing $100 of a deal, let's say the solar system costs $100. I'm talking about third-party financing. The tax equity investor invests approximately $30. There's a 26% tax credit that's currently available. And you invest a little bit more than the 26% tax credit. So let's say I write 30 cents, Adam Raskin writes 70 cents. And then what we then, in turn, we buy a solar system and then we sell power directly to the off-taker. In our case, Adam and I believe, to date, have financed most of this. When I say most, we financed a good portion of the Fit 50 in the city of Los Angeles. And again, there were two transactions that I mentioned earlier. One, Jason mentioned, which was ZBEC. That's the transaction we were involved in. And the second transaction I mentioned, amongst others, was the Port of LA, the 16.5 megawatt deal. Jason also mentioned, I just want to give you the scope of when you think about solar. So if you think of a 1 megawatt transaction, what does that translate into a roof? So hopefully, Jason, I'm not giving bad information. A 1 megawatt system is about 100,000 square foot roof. So if you think about it that way, it allows you to do the math easy, anywhere between 100 to 120,000 square feet. So when you're translating things back into I call it into language that customers understand, I think 100,000 for 1 megawatt, and you translate accordingly up and down, that's generally a good metric. What I want to do is I want to leave myself available for questions. It's not for me to talk about all the deals I've done, and I've done securitizations, I've done financings, et cetera. It's really for me to answer any questions that you may have as it relates to financing. And obviously, I'd like to give my time back to Mary she's such a gracious host.
Well, bless you, Jason, and thank you for that. And I think for those of us that appreciate what went on with DWP launched this program back in 2013, if you and Adam and others hadn't stepped up with sort of a non-traditional financing method, I think this would have been really much harder than it was.
And Mary, I just want to say one
Yeah.
thing. I forgot to mention this. There's a camera crew directly outside of my house as we speak
Yes.
now. There are about 30 people. I'm having the first nailable solar shingle installed on my house as we speak. And I always, and you know, for the younger folk in the call, they won't get this joke, but there used to be something called the Hair Club for Men. And it said, not only am I the president, but I'm also a client. So in this case, there's a system going on my roof. There's a camera crew. We have a bunch of contractors. So every single thing that I just talked about, I've had a lot of practice going through that from kind of start to finish. So again, anyone has any questions about, you know, rooftop solar, anyone wants to talk about the efficacy associated with it, anybody wants to talk about the warranty associated with it, anyone wants to talk about power output and things of that sort, I'm sure Mary will, you'll be able to get a hold of Mary. And I can gladly have that conversation. There's a real-time solar system being installed in my house now.
Well, Jason, we appreciate that. If one of your fine family members wants to film and you share screen, we'd love to see it being installed for a moment. That would be an action activity. But I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to Jason Rondu, because the way the questions came in, you know, there's some kind of basic questions people have. And then I think we can get Jason Barrett to you with a different kind of series of questions. But starting with Jason Rondu, Jason, can you just talk a little bit about the basics, like, you know, who's eligible, how do you apply? Does LADWP place a lien on your property? Can you kind of distinguish how that works?
Yeah, definitely. And
Okay.
before one thing I omitted in sort of thanking everybody for this is on the ZBEC property that Jason referred to. A lot of times the things that go unnoticed is a lot of things that happen behind the scenes that it takes leadership on, not just on the sort of program side and the political side, but also on the financing side. So I just wanted to point that out, that there are a lot of folks, Jason and Adam and others, that have really stepped up and filled a void to help make sure that these projects are financeable and these actually get done. So I wanted to point that out, that, you know, we're appreciative of all the players that really have come together to make this possible. Now, if somebody does want to get, go through the feed-in tariff process, the typical way that we hear of this occurring is folks get, reached out to by developers. And if that happens, make sure that you consult with several developers. This is just like anything that you make an investment in. You want to make sure that you get, a good deal. You get an experienced developer. On our website, ladwp.com/solar. You can look at any of our solar programs, including the feed-in tariff. ladwp.com/FIT, FIT. Will take you directly to feed-in tariff. There's directions on how to apply. There's a list of all the past installations that have been done, including the developer's name. So if somebody reaches out to you and says, hey, you want to do this, you can go look up, see what their experience is in this area. And like I said, this is a program that not every utility has. And so getting an experienced developer is pretty smart, given that this is a little bit of a different program. Now, the structure of it can vary. We have some folks that have financed financed these programs themselves, meaning they put out the capital, and those are usually for the very, very, very small projects. But more often than not, what happens is they'll come to an agreement where they lease out the roof for a period of 20 years, and they negotiate some return on that. And whether that's shared revenues or whether it's certain revenues is really up to them and the developer to negotiate. And then we'll go through a process of, interconnection, process of construction and engineering and that sort of thing. And so one of the questions was, is there a lien? No, that's LADWP wouldn't, place a lien. This is an agreement between the developer and the owner of the structure, or the owner of the property if it's a carport as well. And I think there was a question of, are we going to sort of expand this to different areas? So I think there's one question, and Mary, if it makes sense for me to just kind of hit similar questions.
Yeah, go ahead. Will
Moderate
you mention, Jason, though, that when you get into the liens, there are PACE programs. The county runs a PACE program, the state underwrote PACE, there's private PACE, there is financing available, right?
Yeah, and that would be for the more traditional solar programs, and actually traditional probably isn't the right word to say anymore, but the more sort of common programs that you see, like net energy metering. I hesitate to say traditional any longer because feed-in tariff has been around for like a decade. So, if, this is an established program. This isn't some new structure, but yes, there definitely are financing programs available, whether that's PACE or others. But for the feed-in tariff, it's structured a little bit different, where you would not have a lien from LABC or anybody else on the property.
And then I thought, Jason, what I do is go to Jason Barrett now, because I think to intertwine these questions, because Jason Barrett, you brought up some really good points about having successfully served underserved communities. And this was one of the major points of the FIT program. We had a goal, I think, Jason Rondu, of over 40%, which I think we got precariously close to. But Jason Barrett, tell me, what are the largest challenges you're seeing to increasing solar deployment in low income communities?
Yeah, so I'm glad wow, that is the question. So there are a couple of different ways to think about it. So credit score is something that people look at. If you look across the US and you look in areas that may be challenged economically, last time I checked, you still see the lights on. So, people, whatever their financial circumstances are, they pay their utility bill. So if you use FICO as a primary metric, that's probably not the right metric to use when you're evaluating someone. It really should be avoided cost savings. So anybody getting solar, the value prop should be their money that they're saving. It should be, in the fancy way that Wall Street folks talk about it, it should be an in-the-money contract. So we were able to get comfortable looking at a metric that did not use traditional FICO. We look at a metric, and again, this was kind of groundbreaking. I think people are beginning to look at this more acceptable. And we looked at a metric that looked at the avoided cost savings that the homeowner was having. And when you do that, and you look at on a weighted average basis, the cumulative default rate is actually lower than with traditional 680 and above FICO scores. So again, when you're dealing with the LMI family, and if you realize that if they don't pay, you go and you effectively take that system back, or you shut the system off, and now they're paying a higher utility bill, that is definitely an incentive that keeps people paying. But I would say credit was a major gating factor, which is something that we got around. And the good news is that the thesis has been proved, because on a pure objective basis, the cumulative default rate is lower than what you have in traditional transactions, I'm happy to say.
Yeah, so then, Jason Barrett, then if a customer wants to replace their roof and install solar, do they reach out to LADWP, or do they apply first to you directly? How does it work?
Is this for Jason Rondu, or is
this is for you, Jason Barrett? Because if I'm listening to you right now, do I come to you for a new roof plus my solar, or do I go to Jason Rondu?
So what you would do is this. So there are a couple of different things. What you can do, and is that, so there are different roles I play. So one role is I'm the head of sales on our solar roofing business. So if you need a roof, we service about nationally about north of 6,000 contractors. And so we're seeing our fair share of re-roofs. So whenever that customer needs a roof, so a roof is something that you need when there's a puddle in the middle of your kitchen or what have you. A roof is a must-have. Solar is aspirational. It's something that is a nice to have. So the key thing is, if you're going to finance your roof, so if you're going to look at your solar, you'd like your solar over a period of time that's financed to be lower than your current utility bill. But if you can take the roof and you can finance it in, and instead of somebody paying $30,000 for a solar system, or for a solar and roof system, or $35,000, if they spend $300 over let's say over a 15, 20-year period, that's a lot more palatable for that family. So what we would do is we would partner with a sponsor equity investor. We are the tax equity investor. We partner with a sponsor equity investor. We provide the financing. and the lease or PPA comes from our sponsor equity partner. And that's how we would facilitate the transaction. The good news for customers is that there is I hate to use the word, there is a plethora of capital that's chasing deals now. So once that opportunity is presented to us, we provide our financing, and then that financing goes directly via lease or PPA directly to the customer. If you're going to do something through the feed-in tariff program, I'll punt that question to Jason Rondu, because he can answer that a lot more specifically.
Well, and just for the person listening, so what you're basically saying is you set up a program where I can come in for a long-term lease, get a new roof and the solar, and then hopefully in a perfect world of Jason Rondu in the next 10 years, it will also include storage, no doubt, right? So my question then to Jason Rondu is, the people who come to you, Jason, are really the solar developers, right? Your constituency are the people that are actually putting the solar on the roof for customers. And to that end, Jason, how do you think it's going? I mean, you have a lot of experience now with DG Solar, over 400 megawatts of NEM, upwards of 100 megawatts almost of it, that we're going to throw a party, Jason, when we get to 100. How's it going simplifying the process, the application process from engineering to construction?
Yeah, this is a really good question, and it's a really timely question too, because we have gone through eras where we have done well and eras where we have done poorly on interconnection. We have always looked at ways where we can make incremental improvements, and that's led to a lot of successes. But what we learned with this LA100 study is that the amount of resources that we need over the next 15 and 25 years is not incremental. And so looking at continued incremental changes to programs, changes to processes, improvements to processes is not it does not match the reality of the resources that we need. So we do need to take a deeper look at this. We also need to take a deeper look at are the incentives that we've put out there correct? Are these programs that, as designed today, going to deliver the amount of megawatts that we need to see over the next decade? And that process will happen through the strategic long-term resource plan, which it really is a long way to say our power plan. How are we going to get to 100% renewable energy? And it will look at that. So I do anticipate over the coming months a relook at not just our processes, but also the program structure, the program design, incentive structure, and all of that. The reality is that we do actually have in a steady state, we have a really good program set up to where we have projects coming in and flowing through the process. Obviously, there are some challenges, some go really smoothly, some don't. But we're not in a steady state, and we really need to rethink the processes. And make sure that we get these really, really simplified so that we can continue to see these grow.
So Jason, I'd be remiss if I didn't say this. We would not have been, I'm speaking on behalf of True Green and behalf of GAF Energy. We would not be successful if we did not work with local developers. I mean, I think you guys set up a great feed-in tariff program. And we had folks, and I'm not paid by the folks at Permacy, but working with someone like a Jonathan Port allowed us to effectively navigate through LADWP, work with local contractors, work with local unions, work with vets who were displaced, and really finance projects. So again, if we were to come in as capital on a standalone basis, I think Mary would have been like, Jason, that's very nice. Thank you. You can go back to New York. Well, we came in and we worked with local developers who were able to kind of shepherd us through the process. And we found it to be a much smoother, a much more palatable process in putting that capital to work. So, Jason, you can think of it this way, Jason, you create the infrastructure, you create the runway. The local developer puts the wheels in the plane, and we help provide the gas, and then we're airborne. So I'd be remiss if I did not talk about partnership with local companies within the Los Angeles market, because we would never have put north of $100 million to work in that particular market as it relates to solar transactions.
Yeah, so that's a really good point, Jason Barrett. Jason Rondu, as you know, like it takes a village. Like the different general managers that have led at DWP, I think have said this, that these partnerships are multifaceted. And what Marty just said is everybody's going to have to engage. That's everybody. Now, to that end, there's a series of questions I want to ask you, Jason Rondu, about, do these projects have prevailing wage or union requirements? Are these plans to increase the Fit Plus areas? Are these programs to pass the benefits from the solar to the tenants directly? Those are kind of questions that have always been out there, but they're being asked again, Jason. So
Yeah.
Would you mind addressing them?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay.
So some of the feed-in tariff projects that we've had in the past, actually a big portion of them have been union jobs, prevailing wage. In fact, many of the contracts that we had required or that we had put out there did have that requirement. Now, not all of them do. And I do think that there's a big interest in having more prevailing wage requirements and these types of things. And that'll be something that'll be evaluated again as part of our upcoming power plan. And I think it's an important question. And I think there is a lot of value in requiring prevailing wage, requiring certain level of capabilities and union workforce. Now, there's also the question of Fit Plus. So some of you are going to know what Fit Plus is. Some of you won't. What Fit Plus is a pilot program to say we not only need solar in the city of LA, but we actually need a lot of storage too. And what we tried to do is put out a pilot program that said, we want to see proposals for feed-in tariff projects that also have storage. Now, when we first launched the feed-in tariff program back in 2012, we had some growing pains. To be totally frank with this solar and storage project, a pilot, we've had some growing pains. It's been a little bit convoluted because when you talk about solar, in some ways it's very straightforward. When you talk about storage as well, it's very tough to get all of the monetary value actually translated into a contract, especially for something like feed-in tariff. So the short answer is yes, we will continue to push for Fit Plus. Our first attempt at it did not result in a lot of projects. In fact, we're going to have to actually expand it, not just on the lower, I'm getting a little bit technical, so I'm going to say this real quickly and I'm going to step back. But on the lower voltage projects, we really focus that. We're going to have to expand that to our higher voltage on the local distribution system because we need to figure out how to get this done and figure out a structure that works. Getting cookie cutter with anything is tough. Even with solar, it's tough. Getting cookie cutter with solar and storage is even tougher, but we're committed to getting there. So that's a long way of saying, yes, we're going to continue to work at this and we're going to continue to expand the sort of opportunities with Fit Plus storage.
So as you're doing this sort of bottoms up analysis about how to get to these 2035 goals, you want to try to standardize as much as you can, right, Jason? But that right now it feels like you're running on parallel tracks, pilots to transition us from the existing programs to a more holistic program, right? Basically.
Yeah, and I think there's a misconception, I think, for a lot of us that you can stand up a program and it's successful overnight. It's a lesson that with these lofty goals for 100% 2035, we can't wait to mid-decade to start to work at these things. With the feed-in tariff program, we had a pilot, a demonstration, and then a year later we launched the program. Some of it was successful. We had to make tweaks. And we iterated up, we learned and we improved, and we're gonna have to do the same thing with all of our local programs. And it's more reason to say, and we have no excuses not to know this because we have learned this in the past. We have learned that these take time and they take, there will be some successes and some stumbling blocks, but we have to start now. And again, we can't wait to mid-decade. We really need to start now on standing up these programs.
So then, Jason, to that point, how will the planning for the distribution grid upgrades you will be planning for those because those will be necessary for the DERs, for the distributed generation, the net meter program and the FIT program and the utility program. You're going to need that for LA 100, right? So you are planning to upgrade the distribution grid.
Yeah. So this is a really good question. This question strikes me as somebody who has some understanding of how important the distribution grid is for this renewable transformation. And for those of you who don't have that sort of firm understanding, I'll just explain it in as simple terms as I can. To do this successfully, to do this affordably, to do this in a way that's reliable, it's really going to take a strong distribution grid. And for many reasons. One, so that we can make sure that we support building electrification, so that we make sure that we can support electric vehicles. And again, that decarbonizes two sectors, not just the power sector, but the transportation sector. And to do all that, we need to make sure that we make investments in our distribution grid. We need to do that because if we do this transformation and we do it in a way that's not reliable, and if we do it in a way that's not equitable, it's not going to be something that other utilities and other states and other cities can copy and can use as a blueprint. So this gets back to what are we going to do? We have a lot of investment that we need to make in the distribution system. In fact, we are looking at things like, do we need to actually completely overhaul some of our lower voltage? And so we've done a year-long study looking at that, but suffice it to say that this is not just putting storage and EVs and solar across our distribution system. This is, running new upgrades to distributing stations. And this is a lot of work. We've done, I'll just give one anecdote and I'll leave it there so people understand the amount of work that DWP and others have to do. We have done 2 distributing stations in the last 15 years, 2. And if you drive through LA and you see sort of like some of these old Art Deco structures that are really beautiful, and you see a lot of equipment that you don't understand in the background, that's usually a distributing station. And those are Art Deco, not because our architects love that. It's because they were built in the 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, and not a lot have been built recently. We need to build tens of those over the next decade and a half. We've built 2 in the last decade and a half.
Well, Jason, we don't underestimate the challenges, but I think that's a really important thing that you're talking about now, because everybody in the community needs to understand that and what the benefits of that are, because there's going to be amazing benefits for that, because the average homeowner is going to have a lot more control over what's going on in their house, because Jason Barrett's going to tell us when we can commercially buy his new roof. When will that be available? Because I
knew I was not going to get up probably that
yes.
saying that. All right. Yeah. So thank you, by the way. So what we're doing is obviously reputation is key to us. We want to make sure that the customer has a good experience. And the good news is that we're offering a warranty on that, frankly speaking, the market does not have, because again, we have the balance sheet. I was talking with a roofing contractor and also a solar contractor yesterday. They're on my property. And I said, I used an example. I said, Mary, if you're the homeowner, and let's say Jason Rondu is a solar contractor, or he's the roofing contractor, whose warranty do you want if we're going to install a system? And every single person came back and said, we want the 800-pound animal in the room, which was us. We'd like your warranty. You can stand, you have the full faith and credit. You've been in business for 138 years. So a lot of the issue you have is you're in a business that's highly fragmented. You're in a business where you have a lot of capital. Some capital is not doing very, very smart things. But more importantly, when you leave, what does that customer have? What happens if there's a leak? What happens if there's an unintended consequence? So we spent a lot of time, a bunch of years in developing a product. And so we're going to have a full launch starting in January. We're going to be we're launching it as a roofing product. It's going to be at the IRE, International Roofing Expo. It's going to be at the IBS, International Builders Show. We're going to be at a bunch of the consumer electronics shows. And we're bringing this as an integrated, building integrated solar that is leak proof. So this is something, Mary, I've been talking about for the last couple of years.
Yeah.
It's going to be in the market, available in January. And we're going to start in the Northeast. We're going to be in California. We're going to be, obviously we can't, California is the biggest, solar market. We'd be silly not to do that. We'll be in Florida, and then we'll start to roll out. The other thing that we think is super important are the services associated with it. There are a lot of folks that talk about solar, but there is an electrification process that takes place. So we've actually invested in having our own electricians actually on our balance sheet. So I'm learning a lot about the whole electrical procurement process. So we'll have electricians. So when we go to our contractors, not only are we providing them with the material we're going to ship to the contractors, but also we're going to provide the services. We think if you do that, it takes a lot of the cost out of it for a customer. The other thing, Mary, that we did is that we made the product install like a roof. I mean, who would have thought a nailable solar shingle? It's an oxymoron. It doesn't make sense. So that was part of the technology that we came up with. If I say any more, I'm going to violate stuff, and all the lawyers are going to come talk to me. But we're super excited. It is here, and we're being very methodical in how we bring this thing to market. But more importantly, we're not going to compromise the waterproofing, because when it's all said and done, if you have solar in your roof and your roof is leaking, it sounds great, but obviously that's an unintended consequence that can create a deleterious outcome. We're trying to avoid that. But thank you for that question, Mary. I figured I was going to get off this call with that you asked me the question.
Yeah. No, you get that question.
You're going to ask. Yeah.
You get that question because Jason Rondu and Jason Barrett, it's like a perfect marriage, because Jason Rondu, you're on the cutting edge of redesigning our new 21st century grid, which, as you said, most of which got built in the 20s, 30s, and 40s. This is a big job. And Jason Barrett has been out there on the cutting edge of finance, figuring out how to make the systems work, and now is immersing himself in the actual product, thank God. So Jason Rondu, the more innovation and streamlining we get on the private side, the better for you on the public side. But I think Jason's role is critical, Rondu, because he's responsible for the basic infrastructure to make this all work. And he has the unenviable task of taking us from the buggy and carriage, which is our current distribution system,
Mary, just to tell you,
yeah,
we can't do this without the partnership with LABC. I mean, it would be silly. I mean,
yeah, but I guess what I'm trying to say, Jason Barrett, for the benefit of the people listening, is
absolutely.
that we have an old distribution system. Okay, some people have analogized it to the buggy, and so you're trying to make it into you're trying to streamline it into a sleek, modern system, right? Capable of handling the new technologies at an affordable price that's fair to everybody. So it's a big job, but you got 11 years to do it, Jason Rondu. So, it's not tomorrow, but so I think for today, we've done a good job, okay, of talking about the Northeast Valley. We were so thrilled to have Congressman Kardes and his leadership and sharing what he's doing in Congress, because this is a super exciting time in Congress where they understand the financing and the infrastructure needs we have, and the LA will be a direct beneficiary, as will California. I'd like to take 1 minute to introduce Ariel Lopez, who is our Sustainability Policy and Programs Associate. She heads up our activities. Say hello to Ariel. Who is the point person in the Northeast Valley for us, who's been working for the last year with the community and helping educate on these programs. And she will be available to people as the point person. And we have a whole new year, 2022 area programming for the Northeast Valley, where we will continue to work hard on bringing these programs and educating people and getting them the tools they need. So with that, I think I should thank everybody. Thank both Jasons for being with us today, and Marty, of course, Jason Rondu. Please thank him for having him join us. And Jason Barrett, thank you for covering for Adam Raskin, and we did miss him today. And with that, I think we can sign off and have a good day. Stay safe.